The Fox News studio was ablaze with light, the Hannity set pulsating with raw anticipation as a sea of facessim-donning red MAGA hats, others clutching liberal signs waited for a clash that promised to be nothing short of explosive. The air crackled with tension, a palpable divide splitting the audience between fervent Trump supporters and vocal progressives, each side ready to cheer or jeer at a moment's notice. Phones were already raised, their screens glowing, poised to capture every second of what was billed as a political showdown for the ages. On one side stood third-year John Kennedy, the 74-year-old Louisiana firebrand whose southern drawl and razor-sharp wit had made him a conservative darling, a man known for disarming opponents with a blend of folksy charm and biting intellect. On the other was Robert De Niro, the 81-year-old Hollywood titan, a two-time Oscar winner whose anti-Trump crusades had cemented him as a cultural icon for the left, his voice carrying the weight of decades in the spotlight. Tonight, the Hannity stage was their battleground, and the nation was watching, ready to see who would emerge victorious in a clash that was as much about ideology as it was about ego. The studio lights burned bright, casting stark shadows across the sleek set, where a large table sat center stage, flanked by two chairs sewn for Kennedy, one for De Niro. The crowd buzzed, a low hum of excitement and hostility mingling as Sean Hannity, with his trademark grin, stepped forward to set the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have a showdown you won't forget," he declared, his voice booming through the studio. "A Hollywood legend versus a Senate powerhouse. Get ready," the audience erupted, a cacophony of cheers and boos filling the air, as the cameras panned to the wings where De Niro was about to make his entrance. Robert De Niro strode out first, his black suit impeccably tailored, hugging his frame with the kind of effortless elegance that only a man of his stature could command. His face was a mask of steely determination, his eyes cold and piercing, reminiscent of the Vito Corleone he'd immortalized in The Godfather. The liberal corner of the audience burst into applause, their claps sharp and enthusiastic, while the MAGA supporters responded with a wave of boos and whistles, their red hats bobbing in protest. Hannity raised a hand, his smile widening as he introduced the guest. "He's a Hollywood icon, never afraid to speak his mind, please. Welcome, Robert De Niro." De Niro gave a slight nod, his expression unchanging as he grabbed the microphone, his grip firm, his posture radiating confidence. He wasted no time, his deep New York accent cutting through the noise like a blade. "I'm here tonight to tell you one thing," he began, his voice resonating with the gravitas of a man who'd spent decades commanding screens. "Donald Trump is the greatest disaster this country has ever seen. And John Kennedy is nothing but his bootlicker in the Senate. A Southern grandpa who thinks his corny one-liners and folksy stories make him some kind of genius." The words landed like a grenade, the liberal side of the audience exploding into cheers, hands clapping wildly, while the MAGA supporters roared in protest, their whistles shrill and defiant. The studio felt like a furnace, the heat of division searing through the crowd as De Niro paced the stage, his left hand raised like a seasoned actor delivering a Broadway monologue. "You think I'm joking?" De Niro continued, his smirk sharp, his eyes sweeping the audience with a mix of disdain and amusement. "I've seen guys like Trump con men, all flash, no substance, preying on people's fears. And Kennedy? He's just Trump's mouthpiece, hiding behind that Louisiana drawl like it's some kind of shield. He's 74 years old. Been in politics forever, and what's he got to show for it? A career of pushing Trump's nonsense and dodging real issues with jokes that belong in a bar, not the Senate." Laughter erupted from the liberal side, a few audience members holding up phones to record the moment, knowing his words would soon flood the internet. De Niro didn't let up, stepping to the side and pointing straight at the camera, as if addressing Kennedy directly backstage. "This guy's a senator, right? Supposed to represent the people of Louisiana. But all he does is parrot Trump's lines, vote for tax cuts that help billionaires, and leave places like Baton Rouge struggling. I stood outside Trump's courthouse, looked people in the eye, and told them he's unfit to lead. Now he's got this old man as his cheerleader, spinning yarns while America burns. It's pathetic. The audience split again, the liberal half cheering louder, their applause drowning out the MAGA boos as De Niro waved a dismissive hand, his gesture dripping with contempt. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a low, dramatic growl, channeling the intensity of his taxi driver days. I grew up in Little Italy, on real streets, not some fake mansion like Trump. I built Nobu from nothing, made films that shaped culture. Raging Bull, The Godfather, The Irishman. What's Kennedy done? He quotes Mark Twain and thinks that makes him deep. He's out of touch, out of ideas, and out of his depth. Louisiana deserves better than a guy who's just Trump's errand boy. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Right on, Bobby!" And De Niro's smirk widened, soaking in the adulation. He turned toward the wings, his tone brimming with challenge. "Kennedy, I know you're back there, listening. You tweet all the time about how you're not afraid of anyone, how you'll defend Trump to the end. So come out here. No scripts, no corny jokes, just the truth. But I'm warning you, I don't go easy. I fought bigger than you my whole life on film sets. In politics, on the streets, you're not ready for this." The crowd roared, the tension as tight as a taut wire. Phones raised high to capture the moment. De Niro sat down, tapping the table lightly, his smug grin plastered across his face, confident he'd just delivered a knockout blow. Backstage, John Kennedy stood behind the heavy curtain, the faint glow of the stage lights casting shadows across his weathered face. His gray suit was crisp, his posture calm but purposeful, his eyes gleaming with a quiet intensity. De Niro's words bootlicker, out of touch. Corny grandpachoed in the air, each one a calculated jab meant to provoke. But Kennedy didn't flinch. His lips curled into a sly, almost mischievous grin, the kind that had disarmed opponents in Senate hearings and television interviews alike. He turned to his assistant, his Louisiana drawl soft but sharp as a blade. "You got that De Niro clip ready? The one from 2016 where he's fawning over Obama on CNN?" The assistant nodded, holding up an iPad, the screen already cued to the video. "Right here, Senator. He's calling Obama a visionary, saying he's the best thing since sliced bread." Kennedy's grin widened, his eyes narrowing with purpose. "Good. Send it to production. I want it on the big screen the second I walk out." He adjusted his tie, his movements deliberate, his voice carrying the weight of a man who'd spent decades navigating political battlefields. "De Niro thinks he's gonna roll over me with his Hollywood swagger and that Goodfellas voice. Let's show him what a boy from Zachary, Louisiana can do when you poke the wrong bear." Hannity's voice boomed through the studio, cutting through the crowd's din. "Bob, you've thrown down the gauntlet. And I hear Kennedy's ready to answer. What do you say to that?" De Niro leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his smirk unwavering. "Answer me? I'd love to see him try. I want to hear how he justifies being Trump's lapdog, pushing policies that hurt the very people he claims to represent. This isn't a movie set, it's real. And I'll show the country he's got nothing but hot air." The crowd cheered again, the MAGA side booing louder, their red hats a sea of defiance. Phones flashed across the room, capturing every gesture, every word. As the anticipation built to a fever pitch, the studio lights dimmed slightly, the ad break music swelling, but the energy in the room only intensified. This wasn't just a debate, it was a high-stakes showdown. And John Kennedy was about to step into the arena, armed with a plan to turn De Niro's attack into his own triumph. The stage was set, the battle lines drawn, and the nation was watching, ready to see if a Southern senator could outwit a Hollywood legend on live television. The Fox News studio was a tinderbox, the Hannity set ablaze with anticipation as the crowd's energy crackled like a summer storm over the Louisiana bayou. The audience, A volatile mix of MAGA diehards in red caps and liberal firebrands clutching signs, leaned forward in their seats, phones raised like weapons, ready to capture every second of the clash between Thurngneerseer John Kennedy and Robert De Niro. The air was heavy with the aftershocks of De Niro's opening attack. His words calling Kennedy a bootlicker and Trump, a disaster still ringing in the ears of the divided crowd. Sean Hannity, his grin wide as a Crescent City moon, stood at the center of the set, his voice booming over the din. Folks, you've heard from Hollywood's heavy hitter, but now it's time for Louisiana's sharpest wit to take the stage. Please welcome Thurngneerseer John Kennedy. The MAGA supporters exploded. Their applause a thunderclap that shook the studio, red hats waving like a sea of defiance, while the liberal corner responded with sharp whistles and mocking jeers. The stage lights flared, bathing the set in a harsh glow as Kennedy emerged from the wings. His gray suit impeccably tailored, his stride slow and deliberate, each step echoing with the confidence of a man who'd spent decades outsmarting opponents. His weathered face, lined with the wisdom of 74 years, broke into a sly, almost mischievous smile, his eyes glinting with the kind of fire that had made him a Senate legend. De Niro sat at the table, arms crossed, his black suit sharp as ever, his smirk a challenge, as if daring the senator to crumble under the weight of his earlier assault. But Kennedy wasn't here to play defense, he was here to wage war, and the crowd could sense the storm brewing. Kennedy gripped the microphone, his Louisiana drawl rolling out like a slow-moving river, smooth but laced with a current of steel that could cut through stone. Mr. De Niro, I heard every word you flung out there, and let me tell you, they landed softer than a feather in a hurricane. You think you can waltz onto Fox News with your Hollywood swagger, your 2 Oscars, and that Goodfellas growl, and make a fool of me and President Trump in front of millions? Well, Bobby, you just stepped into a Louisiana swamp, and you're about to get stuck. The crowd erupted, the MAGA side leaping to their feet, their cheers a tidal wave that drowned out the liberal boos. Kennedy's voice, rich with Southern cadence, carried a warmth that disarmed and a bite that stung, and he didn't give De Niro a moment to recover. You called Trump a disaster, me, his mouthpiece. But let's shine a light on you, shall we? You're a Hollywood titan, no doubt. But you're living in a world of penthouses and private jets, raking in millions from Nobu restaurants, while starring in movies like The Alto Nights that tanked so hard they could have sunk the Titanic all over again. And you've got the gall to stand here and lecture me about what the American people need? The MAGA supporters roared, a few shouting, "Get him, John!" as Kennedy stepped closer to the table, his eyes locked on De Niro's, his smile never wavering but sharp enough to draw blood. You mocked my votes, my record, called me a corny old man. Kennedy went on, his voice rising with a mix of humor and venom that had the crowd hanging on every word. But what do you know about accountability, Mr. De Niro? You stood outside Trump's courthouse, shouting to the world he's a narcissist, a menace. But let's talk about mirrors, Bobby. Ever looked in one? He raised a hand, signaling to the production team. And the massive screen behind them flickered to life, casting a glow across the studio. A 2016 CNN clip rolled, showing De Niro in a gray suit, his face lit with a grin as he said, "Obama's a visionary. He's got class, brains, the whole package. I respect him." The clip froze on De Niro's smiling face, and Kennedy turned to him, his drawl sharpening to a razor's edge. "That's you, Bobby. Fawning over Obama, the same Obama whose policies Trump ran against and beat because millions of Americans were fed up. So who's the hypocrite here? You're out here calling Trump unfit, but you cheered for the guy whose legacy he dismantled. I may be 74, but at least I don't flip-flop like one of your movie scripts." The crowd went wild. Massachusetts GA supporters chanting, "Kennedy! Kennedy!" As whistles and applause shook the rafters, the studio pulsing with energy. Even some neutral audience members nodded, swept up in the senator's relentless momentum. De Niro's face flushed a deep crimson, his hands gripping the arms of his chair so tightly his knuckles whitened. He opened his mouth to retort, his voice rising with a mix of anger and desperation. But Kennedy cut him off, his drawl now laced with a mocking humor that had the crowd eating out of his hand. "Hold your horses, Bobby, I ain't done yet. You say I'm Trump's lapdog, just parroting his lines. Let me paint you a picture. I'm in the Senate fighting for lower taxes so folks in places like Shreveport can keep more of their paycheck. I'm pushing for secure borders so we know who's coming into our country. I'm working for jobs, for schools, for hospitals in Louisiana, where people don't have time for Hollywood drama because they're too busy making ends meet. That's why I'm here. Now, you tell me, what are you fighting for? You're sipping cocktails at Nobu, opening restaurants while I was raised in Zachary, Louisiana, where folks know the value of $1 and the sting of a hard day's work. Who's really out of touch?" The MAGA crowd surged to their feet, their cheers a deafening roar that echoed through the studio. Shouts of "John! John!" ringing out as Hannity laughed, his hand raised to calm the chaos. "John, you're turning this place into a Louisiana hoedown," he said, his grin splitting his face from ear to ear. Kennedy leaned forward, pointing directly at De Niro, his voice dropping to a low, deliberate cadence, each word landing like a gavel in a courtroom. "You mocked my drawl, my stories, called them corny. Well, let me tell you something, Bobby. I don't need a golden statue to prove my worth. I've been fighting for the people of Louisiana since you were still playing tough guys on screen. You talk about my votes? I voted to cut taxes for working families, to protect our Second Amendment, to keep our communities safe from crime. What have you done lately besides open another overpriced eatery and tank a movie? The Alto Nights, $40 million down the drain. You want to talk failure? That's a number even your accountant can't spin." The crowd roared with laughter, a few liberals shifting uncomfortably in their seats as the MAGA side chanted, "Burn!" Someone in the back yelled, "Tell him, Senator!" And Kennedy flashed a quick, sly grin, his eyes never leaving De Niro's. The Hollywood icon's smirk was gone, replaced by a tight-lipped scowl, his hands trembling as he gripped the table, clearly rattled by the senator's unrelenting barrage. De Niro shot to his feet, pointing a shaking finger at Kennedy, his voice thick with fury. "You think you're clever, huh? Digging up old clips, taking cheap shots at my movies. I've fought bigger than you my whole life, Senator. I built my career from nothing in Little Italy, not by cozying up to Trump or pandering to Fox News." But his words lacked their earlier fire, and the MAGA crowd drowned him out with mocking whistles, a few shouting, "Sit down, Bobby!" Kennedy leaned back in his chair, legs crossed, his smile calm but razor-sharp, like a lawyer who'd just trapped a witness. "Cheap shots? I'm just laying out facts, Bobby. You called me out of touch. But you're the one living in a world where 40 million in losses is just another day at the office. I'm here for the folks who can't afford a burger at your restaurants, who want a government that works for them, not against them. You want to talk about fighting? I fight for them every day in the Senate, while you're busy playing make-believe in Hollywood." The audience erupted again, the MAGA side standing in unison, their applause a tidal wave that shook the studio walls. Even some liberals exchanged uneasy glances, impressed despite themselves by Kennedy's command of the stage. Hannity jumped in, still chuckling, his hand raised to ease the mounting tension. "John, you've got this place in a frenzy!" "Bob, what do you say to that clip? To that comeback?" De Niro's face was beet red, his hands clenched, his voice strained as he tried to claw back control. "An old clip? So what? I can change my mind. I'm not a puppet like you. Reading Trump's script word for word, pushing policies that hurt the very people you claim to represent." But his retort fell flat, swallowed by another round of laughter from the crowd. Someone shouted, "You're done, Bobby!" and the MAGA supporters roared in agreement, their phones flashing as they recorded the moment. Kennedy leaned forward, his smile never wavering, his drawl dripping with mock sympathy. "Scripts? I don't need anyone to write my words, Bobby. But you? You've lived off scripts your whole life, Godfather. Raging Bull Irishman. I'm here because I believe in what I say, and the people of Louisiana believe in me. Can you say the same? Or are you just reading lines someone else wrote for you?" The crowd's cheers hit a fever pitch, phones flashing across the room as the moment was captured for the ages. Niro sank back in his chair, his face a mask of frustration, his earlier bravado shattered. Kennedy wasn't done. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper, each word deliberate and piercing. "You know, Bobby, I've been called a lot of things in my time, corny, old-fashioned, even a fool, but I've never been called a quitter. You? You're out here throwing punches, but when the going gets tough, you're looking like you're ready to throw in the towel. You mocked my stories, but let me tell you one. Back in Zachary, we had a saying, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. You came here with your Hollywood lines, but I brought facts, and the American people know the difference." The crowd roared again, the MAGA side chanting "Kennedy, Kennedy!" as the liberal corner fell silent, their earlier jeers replaced by stunned murmurs. Hannity clapped, his voice booming over the chaos. "Folks, this is what a showdown looks like." John Kennedy just turned this stage into his own personal courtroom, and De Niro's on the ropes. The lights dimmed slightly, the ad break music swelling. But the energy in the studio was electric, the crowd still buzzing from Kennedy's relentless counterattack. De Niro stared at the table, his hands gripping the edges, his smug grin long gone, replaced by a look of rare unease. Kennedy sat back, legs crossed, his expression calm but triumphant, like a chess grandmaster who'd just delivered checkmate. The nation was watching, and the senator had just turned De Niro's Hollywood bravado into a springboard for his own victory, proving that in this arena, wit and preparation trumped fame every time. The Fox News studio was still reverberating with the echoes of a clash that had just redefined the political and cultural landscape, the Hannity set glowing under the fading stage lights as the crowd's energy lingered like the afterglow of a lightning strike. The audience, a polarized mix of MAGA supporters waving red hats and liberal hecklers clutching crumpled signs, remained on edge, their phones still raised, capturing the final moments of a showdown that had left Robert De Niro, the 81-year-old Hollywood titan, visibly shaken, and near-seer John Kennedy, the 74-year-old Louisiana firebrand, basking in triumph. The table at the center of the set stood like a battlefield, strewn with the wreckage of De Niro's earlier bravado, his black suit now seeming more like armor dented in defeat. Kennedy sat across from him, legs crossed, his gray suit still crisp, his weathered face lit with a calm but triumphant smile, his eyes glinting with the quiet satisfaction of a man who'd just outwitted a legend. Sean Hannity, ever the showman, stood between them, his grin wide as he raised a hand to address the crowd. "Folks, what did you just witness?" John Kennedy didn't just hold his own, he made this stage his courtroom. And the nation saw it. The MAGA supporters erupted, their applause a thunderous wave, chanting "Kennedy, Kennedy!" while the liberal corner murmured, some shaking their heads in disbelief, unable to fathom how their Hollywood hero had been bested by a Southern senator. De Niro, his face flushed a deep red, hands limp on the chair's arms, stared at the table, his earlier smirk replaced by a rare look of disorientation, as if the ground had shifted beneath him. The studio lights dimmed, but the drama was far from over. This was a moment that would ripple far beyond the Hannity set, reshaping reputations, igniting social media, and etching itself into the polarized tapestry of American discourse. As the show cut to commercial, the crowd's energy spilled onto the internet, where the clash between Kennedy and De Niro exploded like a digital wildfire. Fox News' production team, always quick on the draw, uploaded the highlight clip to X within minutes of the segment's end. Kennedy's razor-sharp delivery of the 2016 CNN clip showing De Niro praising Obama, followed by his devastating line, "Who's the hypocrite here, Bobby? I don't flip-flop like one of your movie scripts." The clip was paired with Kennedy's closing jab. "You're living in a world where 40 million in losses is just another Tuesday." Within seconds, the hashtag number Kennedy vs. De Niro rocketed to the top of X's trending list, amassing tens of thousands of posts as conservatives and liberals picked sides in a virtual brawl. MAGA accounts led the charge, hailing Kennedy as a new conservative icon. A prominent account with over 1 million followers tweeted, "John Kennedy just sent De Niro back to Hollywood in a body bag. Louisiana 1. Tinseltown 0. The post, accompanied by a still of Kennedy's sly grin mid-debate, racked up thousands of likes in minutes. Another user posted a clip of Kennedy's folks in Shreveport line, captioning it, "This is how you take down a Hollywood elite. Kennedy's our guy." The video spread like wildfire, hitting 300,000 views in under an hour. Memes flooded the platform, one showing De Niro's red-faced scowl from the debate with the caption, "When you think you're Travis Bickle but get schooled by a Louisiana grandpa." Another viral image juxtaposed Kennedy's calm, crossed-leg pose with De Niro's trembling hands, captioned, "When you bring a script to a Senate fight." The MAGA crowd dubbed Kennedy the Bayou Butcher, their posts filled with emojis of gators and American flags, celebrating him as the voice of a new conservative wave. De Niro's fans, however, were thrown into disarray, their defense of the Hollywood legend fragmented and desperate. Some tried to rally on X, one loyalist tweeting, "De Niro's a legend. Kennedy's just a Trump stooge using cheap tricks to score points." But others couldn't deny the defeat, with a longtime fan admitting, "I love Bob, but Kennedy was too sharp. He got outplayed." A viral meme repurposed De Niro's iconic taxi driver line, showing his face from the debate with the text, "You talking to me? Yeah, and you lost." The clip of Kennedy mocking the Alto Knights' $40 million loss became a particular sore point, shared thousands of times with comments like, "Kennedy turned De Niro into a punchline." Ouch. Liberal outlets tried to spin the narrative, with CNN posting, "De Niro took on Kennedy, but faced a well-prepared opponent. He's still right about Trump." A Variety piece titled, "De Niro's Rare Stumble Conceded." Kennedy's use of the 2016 clip was a masterstroke. De Niro underestimated his opponent's wit. Even MSNBC, while defending De Niro's anti-Trump stance, admitted, "The senator's folksy charm and sharp facts caught De Niro off guard." It was a tough night for Hollywood. The social media storm wasn't just a fleeting moment, it was a cultural earthquake, with Kennedy's victory reshaping how both men were seen in the public eye. Back in the studio, as the commercial break ended, Hannity returned to the set, his voice brimming with excitement. "Folks, we're back, and John Kennedy just lit this place up." "Bob, you've got to admit, he came prepared." De Niro, still seated, his face a mask of barely contained fury, tried to muster a response. Prepared? He's just a politician playing games, digging up old clips to dodge the real issue. Trump's a danger, and Kennedy's his errand boy. But his voice wavered, lacking the conviction of his opening salvo, and the MAGA crowd drowned him out with mocking whistles, a few shouting, "Give it up, Bobby!" Kennedy leaned forward, his drawl slow and deliberate, each word dripping with mock sympathy. "Bobby, I don't play games. I bring facts. You came here thinking your Hollywood shine would blind us all. But the American people see through it. They want leaders who fight for them, not actors who lecture from ivory towers." The crowd roared, the MAGA side standing in unison, their applause shaking the studio as De Niro's hands trembled, his earlier confidence reduced to ashes. Hannity clapped, his laughter booming. "John, you've got him on the ropes. "Bob, anything to turn this around?" De Niro muttered. "I'm not done." But his voice was hollow, and the audience's laughter only grew louder. A victory symphony for Kennedy. The real impact, however, unfolded beyond the studio walls. Hours after the show, Donald Trump himself weighed in, tweeting from his official account, "John Kennedy was phenomenal tonight. He showed De Niro and the Hollywood elites what real America is about. Proud of our senator." The tweet, liked and retweeted thousands of times, wasn't just praise, it was a coronation, signaling Kennedy's ascent as a conservative heavyweight. In Washington, his performance was celebrated like a battlefield triumph. Senior aides like Stephen Miller and Kayleigh McEnany, who'd once questioned whether Kennedy's folksy style could hold up against a cultural giant like De Niro, now sang his praises. A GOP insider told Fox News, "Trump loved every second of that. Kennedy didn't just win, he made De Niro look like a relic." The senator's next Senate appearances drew unprecedented attention, with reporters probing his views on Trump and the debate, only to be met with his trademark wit. "I faced De Niro on live television," he quipped at a press conference, his grin disarming. "Your questions don't scare me." The room laughed, and Kennedy's newfound star power was undeniable. His image transformed from a regional politician to a national conservative icon. For De Niro, the aftermath was a rare and bruising blow to his reputation. He appeared on CNN the next day, trying to reclaim the narrative. "Kennedy's a showman. Nothing more," he said, his voice strained. He dodged the real issue: Trump's a threat to this country. "I didn't lose. I'm still speaking truth." But the public wasn't buying it. Ex-posts mocked his performance, with one viral tweet reading, "De Niro thought he was untouchable. Kennedy proved him wrong. Number Bayou Butcher." Variety's analysis was blunt. De Niro's legacy is intact, but this clash exposed a chink in his armor. He underestimated Kennedy's preparation and paid the price. Some fans defended him, tweeting, "2 Oscars, no boo. Goodfellas, De Niro's still a legend, win or lose." But others were harsher, with one post stating, "He looked like a bully who got humbled." Stick to movies, Bob. The Alto Knights jab became a recurring theme, with memes and comments hammering De Niro's financial flop as proof of his disconnect. A cultural critic for The Atlantic wrote, "De Niro's anti-Trump crusade has been potent, but facing a prepared opponent like Kennedy showed he's not invincible." At 81, is he still the voice for today's battles? Some suggested he focus on upcoming projects like Zero Day rather than sparring with politicians who could match his fire. The clash's deeper significance lay in what it revealed about America's fractured landscape. Kennedy's victory wasn't just about one senator outwitting a movie star. It was a snapshot of a nation where narrative control is power. The senator, at 74, proved age was no barrier to relevance, using his wit, preparation, and connection to everyday Americans to turn De Niro's attack into a springboard. His use of the 2016 clip wasn't just a tactical win. It was a masterclass in exposing hypocrisy, a lesson for anyone facing critics in work, debates, or online battles. De Niro, once an untouchable anti-Trump titan, was shown to be out of step with a new political pace. His Hollywood pedigree, no match for Kennedy's grounded authenticity. The MAGA crowd crowned Kennedy a hero, with Charlie Kirk tweeting, "John Kennedy is the future of conservative, fight sharp, fearless, and unapologetic." Breitbart raved, "He did what few dare. Took down a Hollywood giant on live television." Small X polls showed overwhelming support. One user writing, "Kennedy for president! He crushed De Niro." Meanwhile, liberals lamented De Niro's misstep, with a Daily Beast op-ed arguing, "Kennedy played to the Fox News crowd. De Niro's still right about Trump, but he lost the optics." Even detractors conceded the senator's skill. A CNN analyst noting, "Kennedy's folksy charm hit a surgical precision. De Niro never saw it coming. The lesson was clear. In today's America, power lies not in fame or past glory, but in preparation and narrative control. Kennedy's triumph showed that a well-placed fact like the 2016 clip could topple even the mightiest opponent. De Niro's mistake was underestimating a senator who'd honed his craft in the Senate's trenches, thinking Hollywood clout would suffice. The fallout on X, from number Kennedy vs. De Niro to memes like Bayou Butcher, underscored how social media amplifies these moments, turning a television debate into a cultural referendum. For Kennedy, the clash cemented his place as a conservative star, a voice for a generation tired of elite lectures. For De Niro, it was a humbling reminder that even legends can falter when they step into the wrong arena. As the studio lights dimmed and the crowd filed out, Kennedy left with a legacy bolstered, while De Niro's hurried exit, phone in hand, signaled a rare defeat. This wasn't just a debate, it was a turning point. A lesson in never underestimating your opponent and always having your ammo ready. Whether in politics, work, or the relentless battlefield of public opinion,